Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, can we please have our seats so we can commence today's meeting? Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, bonjour, boa tarde, muy buenos días a todos, good morning to all. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this meeting of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development. I would like to give our distinguished guests a warm welcome to the Organization of American States and to this Council. It is my pleasure to have you here at this session of the Council. To begin, I am pleased to submit for your consideration the draft order of business, document CIDI/OD 43/14 Rev 1. If there are no comments to this document, and I wish to offer the floor to any delegation wishing to comment on this document, if there are no comments to the draft order of business, the document is hereby approved. Item 2 on our agenda is, in this order of business, will address energy sustainability in the Americas and its linkages to water management. The objective is having this issue placed on the CIDI agenda is not only to raise awareness among OAS member states about the need for greater sustainability in the energy sector, but to underscore the value of integrating energy and water policies, to acknowledge the impacts and lessons learned of unsustainable, uncoordinated water and energy policies, and to recall the potential which resides within the OAS for assuming an active role in energy and water in the context of integral development in the Americas. As expressed in the concept note prepared for this meeting, fresh water and energy are crucial for human well-being and sustainable socio-economic development. Their functions and utility are now widely recognized as being contributory to achieving progress under every sectoral area of development. Major regional and global crises, such as the effects of climate change, poverty, hunger, health, and economic instability, threaten the livelihood of many and are interconnected through water and energy. Water and energy are interdependent, and initiatives within these two areas are essential for global well-being and development. Water is an essential resource in almost all types of energy production. Vast and growing amounts of energy are used to operate and maintain water distribution and treatment systems, and energy is a major component of the cost related to treating and distributing water, whether via pumping or trucking to underserved communities. The World Water Council estimates that by 2030, in a business-as-usual scenario, humanity's demand for water would outstrip sustainable supply by as much as 40%, while energy consumption is projected to increase by almost 50%. Accordingly, understanding the interaction between these two vital elements is paramount to developing a water-secure future. As such, this Council should serve as a platform to create awareness and to promote a regional dialogue on the subject so that our countries can focus on the development of a collective, coherent, and complementary approach to water and energy. This is one way of ensuring that the region's concerns are considered at the highest level of all public and private policy making and development plans. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the response to growing energy demand can come at the expense of water resources sustainability. As in the case of shale oil and gas, biofuel and dewatering of aquifers to exploit coal steam gas and vice versa, desalination, expansion of pumped irrigation systems, or long-distance pumping of water for cities can increase our energy demands. We also have to reference climate change. In terms of climate change mitigation, leading technologies for carbon capture and storage are highly water intensive. The International Energy Agency estimated global water withdrawals for energy production in 2010 at 583 billion cubic meters, representing some 15% of the total water withdrawals, of which 66 billion cubic meters was consumed. By 2035, withdrawals can increase by 20% and consumption by 85%. Energy is big business compared to water and can command a great many more resources of all kinds. Only last week, the Inter-American Committee for Sustainable Development, CIDS, commenced discussions on updating the Inter-American Program for Sustainable Development. It is my hope that this dialogue, which we undertake today, complements those discussions of the CIDS as we prepare to define the areas of action and the content of the Inter-American Program for Sustainable Development, as well as ways in which the OAS can support the development efforts of member states. To begin this exchange, I have the pleasure of introducing the Honorable Kevin Ramnarine, Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, who joins us via video conference. Minister Ramnarine has a long and successful career in the energy sector. He has held positions in the South Trinidad Chamber of Industry and Commerce, now the Energy Chamber, and at British Gas Trinidad and Tobago, where he worked as the lead economist of the country's most valuable natural gas assets, the East Coast Marine Area. There, he obtained valuable in-depth knowledge of the workings of a multinational oil and gas company, being exposed to production sharing contracts, natural gas pricing, project economics, production optimization, business planning, opportunity screening, and determination of natural gas reserves. Minister Ramnarine has also written on and researched the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector. His research interests include Dutch disease in mineral-rich countries, the political economy of oil and gas in Trinidad and Tobago, and the emergence of the gas economy of Trinidad and Tobago. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to give you the Honourable Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs of Trinidad and Tobago and my personal friend, Minister Ramnarine. Minister Ramnarine, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Ambassador Passan. Trusting that you all are hearing us on
yes,
your end. Is there any indication you're hearing us? Are you all hearing us, Dr. Passan?
You're loud and clear, Minister. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all in Washington from Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, OAS ambassadors, country delegates, distinguished panelists, Chairman Dr. Neil Passan, Ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago to the United States of America. Good morning. I would have loved to be there in Washington in person, but at least we have the option of the technology here this morning. The topic this morning is a topic which I have been researching and reading quite a lot about since I became Minister of Energy, because prior to being Minister, I didn't really appreciate the importance of water to energy production. And when you become a minister and you're responsible for industrial development, one realizes that without a supply of industrial water, there is no room for the growth of industry in Trinidad and Tobago. So our largest consumer of water in Trinidad and Tobago is the industrial sector, and we have a deficit in Trinidad and Tobago between supply and demand for water as a consequence of our large industrial sector. As a consequence of that deficit, the government has, through the Water Authority, has several projects in the pipeline, one of them being a wastewater project. We discard 10 million gallons of what could be industrial quality water every day into the sea. And the government has embarked on, through the National Gas Company, a project to capture that wastewater and to use it for industrial purposes, while backing out water from our Point Lisas industrial estate for the general population. So in the past several years, Trinidad and Tobago and other Caribbean islands have been forced to re-examine that critical relationship between water and energy. As island states, we are all very vulnerable to the effects of climate change and its consequences. The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has warned that by the year 2030, nearly half of the world's population could face a scarcity of water, with demand outstripping supply by some 40%. Some estimates posit that demand for water to produce energy will increase by 85% by the year 2035. The resource gap grows and global risk rise. The energy sector must therefore practice responsible capitalism and find answers to the puzzle of energy sustainability. The U.S. Department of Energy, and I believe some members of the U.S. Department of Energy are represented here this morning, has been a forerunner in the area of policy making for managing the water-energy nexus. Its model is grounded on 6 strategic pillars, the first being to optimize the freshwater efficiency of energy production, electricity generation, and end-use systems. 2, to optimize energy efficiency and water management, treatment, distribution. 3, enhance reliability and resilience of energy and water systems. 4, to increase safe and productive uses of non-traditional water sources. And 5, to promote responsible energy operations with respect to water quality, ecosystem, and seismic impacts. And 6, exploit productive synergies among water and energy systems. I believe that emerging economies in the Caribbean region must be guided by this model in determining the governing structure for their water and energy interface. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are in the process of producing an energy policy document, and these pillars can be used as guiding principles. Energy security is a critical factor in the development of emerging economies like those in the Caribbean and Latin America, especially with the perceived fragility of the Petro-Carib arrangement. I believe that energy security, food production, and water security are the 3 big challenges to sustainable development in our 21st century. To ignore the role of energy in sustainable development is to defeat the overall idea of sustainable development. You may be aware that Trinidad and Tobago is the only petroleum economy in the Caribbean region. As such, our challenges are different from those of the other Caribbean countries, as we have an energy sector which produces significant demands on our water supply. When the country set up desalination infrastructure in the latter part of the last century, almost 15 years ago, the intention was to feed our major energy sector at what we call our Point Lisas industrial estate. That desalination project is now supporting other residential and commercial demands for water. Given the demands placed upon national water supply by the energy sector, the local water authority, which we call WASA, Water and Sewerage Authority, has embarked upon wastewater rehabilitation programs in partnership with our National Gas Company. This is a partnership between the National Gas Company, which is responsible for the supply of natural gas to the industrial sector, and the state-owned water company, WASA, for the rehabilitation of wastewater at a place in Trinidad that we call the Beetham Estate. There has been great debate about whether our country needs a wastewater treatment plant, but those of us in the energy sector are keenly aware of the cost differentials between its desalination and treatment of wastewater. Energy is the largest expense for a desalination plant. Desalination plants on average use 15,000 kilowatts of power for every 1 million gallons of fresh water produced. However, the energy required for the treatment of wastewater is significantly less. So, in summarizing, there is a very important nexus between water and energy, which I think has gone largely undiscussed and has not received much attention from those persons responsible for water production and those persons responsible for energy production, because the two industries are very separate. There is therefore a need from a policy point of view to bring those two industries together. Without water, there is no agricultural sector. Without energy, there is no agricultural sector. We use our natural gas here in Trinidad to produce fertilizer. We also need water together with natural gas to produce fertilizer, and those fertilizers are sold mainly into North America. So there's a nexus between energy, water, and food. And as I said, that's the three major issues that will confront sustainable energy, sustainable water, and sustainable food production in the 21st century. There is also a nexus between energy and water, as electricity is needed to pump water and to make water accessible to populations in far-flung areas that are far from natural water sources and so on. So I think that there has been a gap between policy for water and a gap on policy for energy that has existed for far too long. And I'm very happy this morning, Dr. Neil Bassad, that this forum is seeking to address the narrowing of that gap between the discussion on water and the discussion on energy. Trinidad and Tobago, for the benefit of members around the table, sits in a very unique position in that we are an ideal test case for an industrial society that has to balance the balance between water production and energy production. So whatever role we could play, we'll be willing to certainly play that role at the level of policy. I want to thank you all for your time this morning, and I look forward to listening to the remainder of the discussions this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Distinguished Minister, for your insightful presentation. Also, thank you very much for your expertise, and thank you very much for sharing the narrative of Trinidad and Tobago. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Mr. Dilberto Escavel, Hydrometeorology Manager of Empresa de Transmisión Eléctrica of Panama and Chairman of the Regional Water Resources Committee of the Central American Integration System, who will present to us the experience of ITASA in the area of energy production and water management, as well as information on the work carried out in Central America. Mr. Escavel, muy bienvenido a este consejo y me gustaría ofrecer la palabra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Estimado señor presidente del Consejo Interamericano para el Desarrollo Integral, CIDI, embajador Neil Parsam, representante permanente de Trinidad y Tobago, estimados señores representantes permanentes ante la Organización de los Estados Americanos, distinguidos representantes de los países observadores ante la OEA, estimados miembros de la Secretaría General de la OEA e invitados especiales. Como es de todos conocido, Centroamérica es una región abundante en recursos naturales. Thank you. Okay. Particularmente sus recursos hídricos. Cuando pensamos en esa bondad, oferta de agua, es lo que básicamente imaginamos. Creo que hay una imagen que podemos ver, no sé si podemos pasarla, por favor. Sí, no la veo ahí, un poco antes, por favor. Ahí, está bien. Esto es básicamente lo que imaginamos. Los paisajes, belleza escénica, la pureza, la naturaleza, exótica sin duda, dependiente de esta considerable cantidad de agua. La región centroamericana es una región de aproximadamente 37 millones de habitantes, un poco más de 500.000 kilómetros cuadrados tenemos allá. La cantidad de agua disponible por habitante, próxima por favor. La cantidad de agua, próxima, Filmina por favor. Next one. Gracias. La cantidad de agua disponible por habitante en cada uno de los países es muy significativa. En algunos casos podrán apreciar en la pantalla, como Panamá y Belice, su recurso hídrico es tal que únicamente es superado por algunos países del subsahara africano. Algunos países desarrollados poseen únicamente un porcentaje muy pequeño del capital hídrico per cápita que tiene Centroamérica. Se podría decir entonces que Centroamérica es un potencial mundial en cuanto al agua. Pero a pesar de esta enorme riqueza que sin duda poseemos en la región, también es cierto que no todo este recurso puede ser aprovechado eficientemente, que es lo que nos gustaría. El clima centroamericano o en Centroamérica es el principal factor que determina de alguna forma la oferta del agua y es altamente variable, como todos ustedes saben, debido a factores naturales así como a factores humanos. Esta variabilidad climática, de alguna forma, sumada a otros aspectos, como por ejemplo la contaminación del agua, el mal uso de la tierra, el crecimiento acelerado de la población, imponen sobre las economías de los países centroamericanos una carga adicional. Un ejemplo claro de esta circunstancia se presenta en el sector agrícola de nuestros países, el cual continúa siendo una de las principales fuentes de ingresos para las economías centroamericanas que dependen enormemente del agua. Las sequías recurrentes tienen un efecto muy grande, seguro, en nuestras economías, particularmente cuando estos no poseen la infraestructura necesaria para poder hacerles frente. Un ejemplo ha sido la sequía asociada al fenómeno del Niño, aunque a veces dicen que no lo declaran todavía 68%, 65%, pero es cierto que tenemos algo de falta de agua acá. Entonces, afectado por todo esto, digamos que en el 2014 no la hemos pasado muy bien con este tema. Entre los principales problemas del agua en Centroamérica está también su distribución en el tiempo y el espacio. El Caribe centroamericano recibe cerca de 70% de agua. Sin embargo, imagínense, solamente está habitada por un 30% de la población. En la otra parte tenemos al Pacífico centroamericano, habitado por el 70% de la población y en contraposición posee únicamente el 30% del recurso hídrico. Mucha de la lluvia es producto de eventos hidrometeorológicos extremos, los cuales pueden ocasionar desastres. 1 de cada 10 es ocasionado por eventos climáticos. El 85% de los desastres en Centroamérica se asocian con eventos hidrometeorológicos extremos, los cuales producen inundaciones en algunos casos y sequías en algunos otros casos. En otra situación muy importante en Centroamérica se relaciona con la contaminación. Esto es un problema que está prácticamente fuera de control en nuestra región. Los ríos en Centroamérica se han transformado en focos de contaminación, lo cual conlleva una serie de impactos a la salud sobre los ecosistemas y la productividad. Panamá es uno de los países del hemisferio que más ha potenciado la relación entre los recursos hídricos y la productividad, en este particular bien conocido en el caso del Canal de Panamá. Por favor, próxima filmina. Muchas gracias. Del Canal de Panamá, donde se está realizando, como todos ustedes saben, una importante ampliación utilizando novedosas tecnologías. Próxima, por favor. No, anterior. Ahí. Novedosas tecnologías utilizando algunas tinas, como pueden ver también, para el aprovechamiento del agua. También pueden ver en la filmina algo interesante, las nuevas tinas o el tercer juego de esclusas permitirá 3 veces más de capacidad de los buques, prácticamente. El aprovechamiento efectivo del recurso hídrico en Panamá también gira en otros ámbitos como la agricultura y, por supuesto, la generación de energías, por supuesto, renovables, siendo la hidrogeneración eléctrica una de las áreas más importantes y fundamentales para nuestro desarrollo y operación de los sistemas productivos. Poseemos una capacidad instalada al primer semestre del 2014 de 2.694 megawatts, que los cuales representan el 87% de las plantas en servicio público de electricidad, el 12% a las plantas de autogeneración, al sistema interconectado nacional y el restante 1% representa los sistemas aislados. Como es conocido también, Panamá es un país con un rápido crecimiento en su economía, por lo que la demanda energética también ha crecido significativamente. Ante esto, el sector ha tenido que hacer frente a la necesidad urgente de diversificar su producción con una respuesta muy rápida, sin dejar la planificación de largo plazo. Esto es muy importante. En cuenta, entonces, tenemos el potencial hídrico y otras fuentes renovables con que contamos. Por favor, sí, esa es la filmina. Hoy día, los retos de la empresa de transmisión eléctrica a la cual represento son muchos. Efectuar la expansión del sistema de transmisión nacional al ritmo del crecimiento de la generación y demanda de energía que requiere el país, operar, mantener el sistema interconectado nacional con los más altos estándares y confiabilidad, así como participar activamente en los proyectos de integración de los mercados eléctricos a nivel regional. En la actualidad, la empresa de transmisión eléctrica S.A. impulsa la responsabilidad social en todas sus áreas de acción y trabaja en el establecimiento de un gobierno corporativo que sin duda permitirá ser el brazo de energía del Estado panameño en un mercado libre como el que tenemos allá. Creo que también contribuir es importante al desarrollo humano sostenible y consolidar un clima de confianza con nuestros colaboradores, grupos de interés y sociedad en general. El vínculo entre el clima, el agua y la energía en Panamá es tal que nuestro plan de expansión del plantel de generación eléctrica en Panamá está basado en la red de estaciones hidrometeorológicas, desde donde estratégicamente medimos los recursos naturales renovables, realizando además monitoreos permanentes y estudios de los ríos, haciendo posible determinar el potencial y posterior aprovechamiento hidrometeorológico o hidroenergético, siendo así atractivo y confiable a la inversión extranjera. Estimado señor presidente y sus excelencias, esta es una pero muy breve descripción que pretende poner en manifiesto el enorme interés que tiene la República de Panamá en el nexo entre los recursos naturales y productivos, ejemplificado por el nexo natural que por décadas hemos trabajado entre el agua y la energía. Reconocemos que muchos de los Estados miembros de la Organización de los Estados Americanos realizan esfuerzos similares y quisiéramos invitarles a continuar desarrollándolos y potenciar el intercambio de experiencias, buenas prácticas y lecciones aprendidas. El último reporte de evaluación de los recursos hídricos en el mundo de las Naciones Unidas claramente establece que nuestro hemisferio es la única región del mundo en balance positivo entre el agua y la población. Esto hace que continuemos redoblando los esfuerzos por el uso sostenible de los recursos, incluyendo su protección, conservación, por supuesto, para las futuras generaciones, a partir del mejor conocimiento y manejo eficiente de las energías renovables. Finalizo compartiendo con ustedes, ahí está, un mapa que es la base orientadora de la expansión de generación hidroeléctrica para los próximos 15 años, en donde se muestran las centrales hidroeléctricas en construcción y en proyectos hidroeléctricos en concesión, todo vinculado al monitoreo y observación sistemática de las diferentes variables del clima con potencial para la producción energética. Le agradezco mucho su atención a mis palabras. Señor presidente, mis respetos. Tal vez quisiera, si usted me permite, disculparme con usted y con toda la sala, porque yo estoy siendo parte de una gira de integración energética en energías renovables que organiza el gobierno de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica a través del CIDI. Estoy con ellos, sin embargo, quise, en atención a su gentil invitación, compartir con usted este día. Lamento de verdad no poder tampoco acompañarlo al almuerzo, pero tiene mi respeto y mi agradecimiento y espero pronto verlo a usted y a todos ustedes por Panamá para recibirlos con mucho cariño. De verdad lo aprecio que me hayan escuchado este día. Muchas gracias, de verdad. Mr. President. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Esquivel, for your kind thoughts, your kind words just now, and for your very insightful presentation to this council in the efforts of, it is said, to increase both water and energy efficiency. Our last speaker for this agenda item 2, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. William Becker, Senior Policy Analyst for the Center for the New Energy Economy and Executive Director of Presidential Climate Action Project, who joins us via video conference. Mr. Becker and his Advisory Committee of Energy and Climate Experts have provided recommendations to the White House in a series of reports that began back in 2007. The most recent report, produced in consultation with more than 100 U.S. thought leaders, was presented to the President's Cabinet in January 2014. It describes 200 actions the President can take to increase energy productivity, to finance renewable energy technologies, to design 21st century business models for electric utilities, to develop alternative fuels and vehicles, and to ensure that natural gas is produced responsibly. Mr. Becker, it is with great pleasure I offer you the floor, and welcome to the OAS and welcome to the Council for Integral Development. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is mine. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here with you and have this opportunity to share some thoughts on the energy water crisis. I will start by apologizing for the informality of my wardrobe. I'm on vacation in the Rocky Mountains at the moment and coming to you by satellite. I want to offer just 5 brief observations. Most of them will be no news to most of you, but something I think we need to keep on the table. Observation number 1 is that it'll be very important to increase public education and public support and understanding of the changes ahead, because we know the future will not be like the past in regard to both energy and water. Due to climate change, of course, due to growing consumption, both because of the increase in population, but also the extension of energy and water services to the many, many people who do not now have them. Secondly, we have to have greater transparency of where we get water, how it's used, what its costs are. And the reason we need this public education is because the changes will be felt, I think, right down to the individual water user. And to make sure that there's some amount of public support, or at least we minimize the public discomfort over these changes, this education will be important. We talk about smart meters in regard to energy consumption. In other words, the ability of individual consumers to see exactly how they're using their energy and how much. And I think we need to talk about the same kind of smart metering for water. And the relationship between water and climate impacts, I think, is an interesting one, because it's easier for most people to understand than factors like atmospheric force and carbon loading. So water is a very important part, I think, of helping people understand, lay people understand what's ahead with climate impacts, why we need to adjust to them. And finally, in regard to the first point, I think we need more education about the fact that water is not a renewable resource. The planet has a finite supply. The water cycle is very long. So those basic foundation understandings, I think, will be important. Observation number 2, of course, is that energy and water policy can no longer be made separately. We have to break down the stovepipes that we've used in the past. According to the International Energy Agency, water consumption for energy production is on track to double in the next 25 years. And the IEA says that annual water use to make energy could equal 90 days of discharge from the Mississippi River, or 3 days of water use for every consumer in the United States. There are many people that will remain in the future in regions with water scarcity. And according to the IEA, 2/3 of the world population could be under water stress. Now, the IEA predicts that worldwide, coal and biofuels will be our biggest water users. They estimate that coal could be responsible for more than half of all energy-related water consumption in 2035. So obviously, this affects our energy choices in the future, or it should. biofuel water consumption alone could increase by more than 240%, according to the IEA, by 2035 if we get our biofuels from food-related crops that require irrigation. So there will be even more incentive to choose minimal water energy technologies like photovoltaics, wind power, and cellulosic biomass that's grown not with food crops, but from other types of biomass resources. Insofar as we continue with conventional thermoelectric cooling, I think it's going to be important for the market price of our energy to reflect those increased energy use or water losses involved in dry cooling, in desalination, in closed-loop systems, in carbon capture and sequestration, which is supposed to use more water than conventional pulverized coal generation. All of those costs, I believe, need to be reflected in the market, and how they're distributed among our populations is going to be a very touchy political and policy decision. I'm talking here about using full cost life cycle accounting, including the cost of water benefits and energy benefits and relationship between them. Now, energy and water policies need to anticipate the changes in population, climate change, and include risk management, I think, as one of the factors for energy and water choices. We understand the risks of water scarcity in some regions and too much water in others. We need to begin managing those risks right now. And we found in our work with the White House that the risk management framework is a very useful way to explain some very tough choices. That we may or may not be certain about the climate impacts ahead, but we do know that we need to manage against the worst case scenarios. Third, long-term maintenance must be part of our financial and budgetary planning for energy and water infrastructure. In the United States today, both energy and water infrastructure are aging quite a bit, and we've had 240,000 water main breaks a year on average in recent years. The estimate is that we will need to make capital investments in the U.S. of $300 billion over the next 20 years, and these costs need to be anticipated. Because I know, at least in the U.S., we pay too little attention to managing the infrastructure that we invest in. So that needs to be factored into the price of water. Observation number 4 is that we should maximize our use of the less expensive ecosystem services that are available to us, and in many cases have been degraded or even destroyed. And I'm talking here about wetlands restoration, natural sponge that helps recharge the water table, permeable urban surfaces that help recharge the water table, and keep water where it falls, raindrops where they fall, rather than turning it to stormwater runoff that pollutes our water resources. Urban forestry and green space in urban areas, storage facilities in those water-rich areas to store rain when it does fall, because one of the impacts of climate change will be in many areas the same amount of rainfall every year, but it falls in only a couple of times in very intense rainfalls. And as you know, what happens is that saturates the ground, water no longer is absorbed by the ground, and it turns into stormwater. And finally, observation number 5, there will be some ethical issues here, there already are, of water stewardship. There will be haves and have-nots and the normal tensions that arise in situations like that. And water, I think, will become even a bigger issue of environmental justice than it is today, in terms of its affordability and availability to people of all income classes in all areas of the world. So thank you very much. These are my thoughts, and I, again, appreciate being able to speak to you this morning. It's starting Colorado time. I'm not sure what time it is there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Becker, for that very informative and very insightful presentation. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have now had 3 very interesting presentations and perspectives, and I'm particularly happy, having listened to Panama's perspective, the narrative of Trinidad and Tobago, and then the input from the United States, to really appreciate, what I would term some golden triangles: the triangle between water, energy, and agriculture, the triangle between water, renewable energy, and climate change mitigation strategies, the triangle between water, energy, and development. And we had a very functional triangle with Panama, which is the triangle between water, development, and transport. And with this, I am particularly pleased to offer the floor to delegations that may wish to refer to these presentations. and to the nexus between water and energy, and how this council can further contribute to these discussions. Me gustaría ofrecer la palabra a la delegación de Colombia, por favor.
Sí, muy buenos días. Gracias, señor presidente. Muy buenos días a todos. Primero quisiera agradecer su iniciativa de traer un tema tan importante como es el tema de la energía y del agua al CIDI. Mi país está particularmente interesado en fortalecer el vínculo que existe entre energía y agua, y como lo dijo el ministro Ranmarín, hay vínculos muy claros entre la energía, el agua y otros sectores, pero hay unos retos muy grandes a nivel de políticas públicas que deban ser integradas para un manejo conjunto de estos recursos. Quisiera, si ustedes me permiten, compartirles algunos temas que son importantes para Colombia en materia de energía y agua. Como ustedes saben, Colombia es un país bastante privilegiado en materia de recursos hídricos. El rendimiento hídrico de nuestro país está superando casi 6 veces el rendimiento hídrico promedio mundial y también 3 veces el rendimiento de América Latina. A pesar de esto, de esta disponibilidad de agua que tenemos, nuestro país es altamente vulnerable. Por lo tanto, estamos promoviendo actualmente una política nacional para la gestión integrada del recurso hídrico, política que arrancó en el 2014 y va a terminar en el 2022 con el objetivo de garantizar una sostenibilidad del recurso mediante un uso eficiente y la conservación sobre todo de los ecosistemas que están regulando la oferta hídrica de nuestro país. En materia de acueducto y alcantarillado, las zonas urbanas en Colombia tienen coberturas de casi el 100%, 97.4 y 90.2 respectivamente. Sin embargo, tenemos serias dificultades a nivel de provisión de servicios de agua y saneamiento en las zonas rurales, que tienen tan solo coberturas del 66%. Es decir, que el reto que tiene Colombia ahora es garantizar esa cobertura a nivel del 100% en todo el país, y lo estamos planeando para el año 2019. En materia de energía, básicamente Colombia se mueve con energía hidroeléctrica que consideramos renovable, limpia y sostenible, y es responsable de la generación de casi el 70% de toda la energía eléctrica del país. Colombia, después de Brasil, es el país de Latinoamérica y del Caribe tal vez con el mayor potencial hidroeléctrico de la región. Somos el mayor productor de carbón en América Latina y a nivel mundial somos el 10º productor y el 5º exportador de este mineral. En el sector petrolero somos el 3er productor de petróleo en América del Sur, con más de 1 millón de barriles de petróleo por día. También quisiéramos, después de compartir con ustedes la situación que más o menos, grosso modo, tenemos en Colombia en materia de agua y energía, decirles que tenemos un gran interés en cooperar por medio de intercambio de experiencias, conocimientos y buenas prácticas en el tema de gestión integrada de recursos hídricos. Es por esto que nuestro país en el 2011 albergó el 7º Diálogo Interamericano sobre Gestión del Agua, y este diálogo fue importante para la plataforma preparatoria del Foro Mundial del Agua. También facilitamos el año pasado la adopción de una resolución aquí en la OEA sobre la gestión integrada de recursos hídricos de la mano de otros países. Colombia considera de gran importancia que estemos aprovechando en el marco del CIDI abordar esta temática, y existe un gran interés en el país de aprender de otros países, no solo en el tema de energía y agua por separado, sino cómo se puede transversalizar la agenda energética internacional, porque estas dos temáticas normalmente se abordan de manera separada y desconocemos a veces las sinergias muy grandes, inclusive en nuestro país, que hay entre las mismas. Esperamos que estos insumos que estamos hoy compartiendo en esta reunión y las presentaciones que se hicieron por parte de las autoridades de Trinidad y Tobago y los expertos puedan ser compartidas a las delegaciones, de manera que nuestros ministerios de Minas y Energía y de Medio Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible puedan hacer uso de este intercambio. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, representante de Colombia, para los comentarios. At this point, I wish to offer the floor. It's my pleasure to offer the floor to the delegation of the United States, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. The energy-water nexus is an important issue for the United States domestically and internationally, and we and others strive to strike a balance between energy access and supply and sustainable development of our natural resource. And in fact, today, this issue is so important that I have colleagues from the Department of State and Department of Energy here today because they wanted to participate in the dialogue. Like other member states, the United States, like Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, and Brazil, is suffering and experiencing drought that impacts our energy and food sectors. This is a global challenge, but there are solutions. Solving the problem requires new ways of cooperating and coordinating across sectors at a local, national, regional, and international scales. So what steps can we take to move forward? First, get data. We need to understand better the problem, the connections, and the impacts by generating, using, and openly sharing improved sources of data. Second, deploy technology. We can implement existing, innovative, off-the-shelf technologies that promote energy and water efficiency, use non-traditional sources of water for energy production and generation, and deploy renewable and clean energy technology for water-related uses like irrigation or wastewater treatment. Third, work together. Energy and water decision makers must work together to ensure that decisions made by one sector don't impact the other. One of the biggest challenges is to overcome inherent challenges that limit intergovernmental and interagency communication and collaboration across and between sectors. We can help by strengthening institutions and establishing mechanisms for joint planning and development across sectors. Finally, use incentives. Incentives are an efficient tool to encourage conservation of water and energy. We can start working to create policy and regulatory frameworks that strengthen local capacity and enable businesses to serve as a catalyst for change. Internationally, the State Department is supporting the Nexus dialogues to share best practices that can help countries address their energy and water challenges. The State Department recently compiled a compendium of 30 domestic case studies of energy water best practices that are available publicly for countries interested in learning from our experiences. The United States is committed to finding and implementing solutions to these problems and welcomes the opportunity to partner with other governments in this effort. Further, the Clean Energy Ministerial, a high-level global forum to promote policies and programs that advance clean energy, is currently exploring a new work stream on the energy-water nexus. The United States is supportive of this effort and is working with other countries to develop this work stream. As Minister Ramnarine mentioned or noted, the Department of Energy recently published a report on the water energy nexus to provide a foundation for Department of Energy action and to encourage dialogue and joint engagements to address the challenges ahead. And we appreciate Trinidad and Tobago's interest in incorporating pillars of this report into its energy and water policies. I should say future energy and water policies. We believe that it is in our national and hemispheric interest to ensure adequate supplies of energy to the global economy and manage geopolitical challenges arising from shifting patterns of energy production and consumption. In addition, we want to promote national and regional markets to facilitate financing for transformation energy. We congratulate the countries of Central America for finishing the final phase of the Central American Electrical System, or CIDI, which has been used to facilitate electricity trade in times of drought. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative of the United States, and thank you for your call to action in terms of information sharing, use of technology, incentivization programs, and your call for collaboration. I could not have agreed with you more. Thank you. It's with pleasure I offer the floor to the distinguished representative of St. Kitts Nevis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. St. Kitts and Nevis applauds the OS on its diligence in ensuring that member states understand the importance of creating sustainable economies. We appreciate dialogues such as this, where sound and insightful exchanges are made. The OAS, through CIDI and its Department of Sustainable Development, has been instrumental in St. Kitts and Nevis' thrust towards greening its economy through its work on geothermal on Nevis and other sustainability projects. St. Kitts and Nevis thanks all the presenters for their informative presentations. Energy security is critical, and the linkages that were highlighted between water sustainability and energy were quite insightful and provide useful lessons for St. Kitts and Nevis in its water resource management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative of St. Kitts Nevis. At this point, it's my absolute pleasure to offer the floor to the Executive Secretariat for CIDI, Ms. Sherry Truss. Ms. Truss, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. First, let me start by really congratulating you for coming up with this particular issue to be addressed in the context of CIDI. Very early on, when we met with the Chair and he began thinking about what he wanted to do during his chairmanship, this was one of the issues that he raised early on, looking at the nexus between energy and water. And we know a lot of the work that he's doing, certainly with the Global Gas Council. But I thought this was particularly interesting for a number of reasons, not only because we work on these issues here within the OAS, but because by bringing these two things together, it really underscores what we do within the context of this council and within the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, that is integrating the different issues that we look at to inform coherent policy making. And so there are a couple of things that I wanted to just highlight that I took away listening to the experts that shared with us this morning from Panama, the minister from Trinidad and Tobago, and of course our colleague from the United States who's still on screen, Mr. Becker, looking at us. We really thank you for that input and that expertise. We've all learned a lot, I think. But there are four things that struck me, apart from the technical input that we heard. First, we consistently heard from all of the presenters, including the chair in his opening statement, the issue of security being brought up over and over again. Energy security, water security, and how important this is for national and regional development. The second thing that we kept hearing is sustainability. Taking the long-term view in terms of looking at how we utilize the natural resources that are available to us so that we don't compromise the ability of future generations to be able to continue the advancement toward sustainable and inclusive growth. The third thing I already mentioned is thematic integration, and the chair referred to this as a golden triangle. But that really, I think, is absolutely key. None of these issues exist in isolation, and bringing them together really does underscore and undergird the national policy agendas, the regional discussions that we're having in terms of how we can work together to make these things happen, which brings me to the fourth point, cooperation. That also was very evident in all of the statements that we heard from our experts and the statements that we heard from our delegates around the table. Because none of these issues, when you look at them, whether we're talking about water, we're talking about energy, we're talking about competitiveness, none of this is captured simply within a geographic border. Everything goes beyond. And the ability for us to work together and find mechanisms for cooperation is essential. And so for us here in the Executive Secretariat for Development, working with countries in these areas, as you know, for example, in Central America, we're working in the Trifino region on water resources management. This is something that we've been doing for years and we've been doing a great job at, I think. And in the Caribbean, that was mentioned, we were working on geothermal and wind energy with several of the countries there. These are issues that for us are fundamental for us to be able to support development in our countries. So we look forward to continuing to working with you and getting this kind of input as well in terms of what's happening in the national space and how we as a technical secretariat can be even more helpful and instrumental in helping advance these and finding ways and mechanisms for us to bring together in a much more coherent way what's happening in one place, in another place, and really having a much more hemispheric view in terms of how we can proceed together. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Becker, Minister Kevin from Narayan, who's hopefully still listening, and our colleague from Panama who had to depart. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Truss, for your apt summary on this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree, having heard the voices of the experts over the past few minutes, that we have some solutions, we have some opportunities for collaboration, collusion, cooperation on some of these issues. And Ms. Truss, thank you for mentioning and being so kind in terms of your commentary towards me, but I fear, as my country's representative, that the region, the hemisphere, and in some instances I can narrow it down to Central America and the Caribbean in particular, we are running the risk of what I call a silent debt crisis, a water debt crisis, a food debt crisis, an energy debt crisis, and of course there's the financial debt crisis. But I think it's absolutely necessary that as 34 member states of a cooperative hemisphere, we bring some of these potential debt issues to the forefront, pay attention to them, and as Ms. Truss aptly pointed out, integrate them into a collaborative discussion and understanding the call to action in terms of mitigating these challenges that we potentially face, and in some instances actually face. It's no longer potential, it's been actualized in some instances. So again, to all the speakers and presenters, thank you so much, and many thanks to the delegations for their comments and contributions. I think it has been a rich discussion and a productive agenda item for this meeting for discussion. In closing, I would like to propose that CIDI firstly recognizes our speakers for their presentation and insightful comments, request that CIDI continue forging links between water and energy in their programming, cooperation and policy dialogue, and also call upon the member states for further consideration and for further opportunities to consider opportunities and challenges that the intricate relationship between water and energy poses to the region, and to consider including strategic priorities of action in this respect in the next Inter-American Program for Sustainable Development. I would like to ask delegations if there are no comments on these proposals. As there are no further requests for the floor, I wish to approve these recommendations. These recommendations are hereby approved. Before we continue to the next item, I would like to give a short recess. Well, we don't need to give a recess for you guys to leave because they've left already. So I wish to move to agenda item number 3. Mr. Becker, I thank you so kindly for being with us, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Agenda item number 3, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, refers to the election of the chair of the CIDI Working Group on Strengthening CIDI and its organs. This item was included in order to elect a new chair to replace Mr. Agustin Vasquez, alternate representative of El Salvador. In addition to the working group has an elected vice chair. I would like to ask delegations if they're ready to present candidatures for this chairmanship. En este caso, me gustaría ofrecer la palabra a la delegación de Colombia, por favor.
Gracias, señor presidente, y buenos días a todos los colegas. La delegación de Colombia quisiera presentar la candidatura al señor Samuel Ashkalay Sanmaniego, representante alterno de la misión permanente del Perú ante la OEA, para la presidencia del grupo de trabajo encargado del fortalecimiento del CIDI y sus órganos. El señor Ashkalay es segundo secretario del Servicio Diplomático del Perú y se desempeña como representante alterno ante la OEA desde junio de 2012, en donde se encuentra a cargo de los temas de desarrollo integral. En el Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores del Perú fue funcionario de la Dirección de América del Sur del año 2010 al año 2012. Tiene 2 magíster en Diplomacia y Relaciones Internacionales, uno en la Academia Diplomática del Perú y otro en la Escuela Diplomática de Madrid, y es licenciado en Comunicación Social por la Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos. Antes de ser diplomático, fue periodista político en el Perú en revistas y agencias de noticias, además de editor de varias publicaciones, y fue jefe de prensa en la Conferencia Episcopal Peruana. Ha recibido 5 premios nacionales de periodismo en prensa escrita, un premio nacional en comunicación audiovisual, además de ser finalista en concursos literarios. Asimismo, ha sido catedrático en universidades de su país en materias como literatura peruana del siglo XX y negociación política. Gracias, señor presidente.
Muchísimas gracias, Colombia. I would like to offer the floor to the representative of Canada, please.
Canada would like to second the nomination of the distinguished delegate from Peru. We have greatly appreciated his leadership in the past and appreciate his ability to make consensus and would like to do so by acclamation.
Thank you very much, distinguished representative of Canada. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to announce that Mr. Samuel Ascaye, alternate representative of Peru, has been elected chair of the CIDI Working Group on strengthening CIDI and its organs. Allow me, Ascaye, I know you have the request for the floor, but allow me to congratulate you on your election and to offer you all my assistance as chair of this council in continuing the work that you will be called upon to perform during your term. Ms. Ascaye, it's my pleasure to offer you the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente, por sus palabras. Muchas gracias también por las palabras de la delegación de Colombia, de Canadá y del apoyo de todos los Estados miembros. Solamente quisiera reiterar la voluntad de mi delegación de colaborar con esta organización en tema de desarrollo integral, especialmente a través de esta presidencia del grupo de trabajo de fortalecimiento del CIDI. Quisiéramos señalar también que vamos a continuar con los trabajos iniciados por la anterior presidencia que recayó en El Salvador, con nuestro querido y recordado amigo Agustín. Respecto al tema de la modernización y simplificación de la estructura del CIDI, tendientes a su mayor eficiencia, especialmente en la operatividad de las comisiones interamericanas. Para ello, queríamos anunciar que vamos a hacer algunas reuniones informales previamente, antes de convocar a la reunión formal. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ascaye, for your comments. And again, welcome to your chairmanship. And again, let me reiterate my support for your work. Ladies and gentlemen, we move to item number 4 now on our agenda, which refers to the preparations for the ministerial and inter-American committee meetings. To begin, I am pleased to offer the floor to the delegation of Mexico, who is offering to host the 29th Inter-American Conference of Ministers of Labor in November 2015. Distinguished representative of Mexico, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Muy buenos días a todos. Como es del conocimiento de este Consejo, la 18ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo celebrada en Medellín, Colombia, reunió a los ministros y ministras de Trabajo y delegados de 27 de nuestros Estados miembros y a más de 80 representantes de trabajadores, empleadores y organismos internacionales, incluyendo al director general de la OIT, representantes de la OPS, el BID, del Banco Mundial, la CAF, entre otros. En dicho encuentro se celebró el 50 aniversario de la conferencia, se adoptó la Declaración y el Plan de Acción de Medellín, enfocados, entre otros, a identificar mecanismos y buenas prácticas en la generación de políticas públicas integradas para la promoción del trabajo decente, digno y productivo. Los ministros acordaron también celebrar la 19ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo. Me gustaría recordar lo señalado por el secretario de Trabajo y Previsión Social de México, Alfonso Navarrete Prida, quien hizo hincapié en que la Declaración de Medellín será el punto de partida para los trabajos que enmarquen la presidencia pro tempore de México, a fin de consolidar de la mano de la OEA el desarrollo de políticas públicas integradas que permitan la distribución más equitativa de los beneficios económicos entre nuestras sociedades. Señor presidente, es un honor para mi delegación someter a consideración de este Consejo el proyecto de resolución CIDI Doc 129/14, convocatoria de la 19ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo. El proyecto de resolución que hoy presentamos retoma la resolución del año 2012 actualizándola con algunos de los resultados de la 18ª reunión de la Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajos, así como con elementos de la Declaración de Asunción Paraguay. Señor presidente, este proyecto de resolución buscaría resolver lo siguiente: aceptar con beneplácito el ofrecimiento del Gobierno de México para realizar la 19ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo los días 18 y 19 de noviembre de 2015 en Cancún, Quintana Roo, México. Segundo, convocar a dicha conferencia en la fecha y lugar indicado en el resolutivo anterior y hacer un llamado a los Estados miembros a participar en la misma, enviando a sus máximas autoridades de trabajo. En el tercer resolutivo, disponer que se asignen los recursos previstos en el capítulo 8, subprograma 83G del programa de presupuesto de 2015 de la organización, de conformidad con los lineamientos establecidos en la resolución CPRES 982-1797, actualización de costos establecidos en la resolución, de costos de conferencias y reuniones financiados por la OEA. Y por último, encomendar a la Secretaría General que a través de la CIDI apoye el trabajo y preparación y organización de la 19ª Conferencia Interamericana de Ministros de Trabajo. Señor presidente, sometemos a consideración este proyecto de resolución.
Thank you very much, Representative of Mexico, for your presentation and the offer to host this important meeting of Ministers of Labor. I would wish to offer the floor to delegations that may wish to refer to this and to the draft resolution that is being presented. Representative of Canada, is there a request for the floor? Thank you very much, Canada. Me gustaría ofrecer la palabra al representante de Ecuador, por favor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Deseo agradecer la presentación de esta resolución a la delegación de México, respecto de la cual mi delegación desea añadir una nota al pie en el tercer considerando, luego de la palabra sexta, y dicha nota al pie lee: la República del Ecuador formula expresa reserva de las referencias a la Sexta Cumbre de las Américas realizada el 14 y 15 de abril en Cartagena de Indias, Colombia, sin perjuicio de los contenidos aprobados por el Ecuador en otros contextos de negociación según corresponda. Gracias, señor presidente. Estaré pasando a la Secretaría el texto.
Thank you very much, Representative of Ecuador. Your footnote is duly noted. I wish to offer the floor this time to the Representative of Nicaragua, por favor.
Gracias, señor presidente. También agradecemos a México por la presentación de este proyecto de resolución e informamos que vamos a incluir nota a pie de página, al igual que Ecuador, en la mención de la Sexta Cumbre de las Américas, y el texto es el mismo que hemos utilizado en resoluciones anteriores. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Representative of Nicaragua. If there are no further comments, this resolution would be approved with the modifications raised here today and the footnotes duly recorded. Having said that, this resolution is hereby approved. I am pleased at this time to offer the floor to the delegation of Panama, who is offering to host the Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Education in February 2015. Delegation of Panama, the floor is yours.
Gracias, señor presidente. Muy buenos días a todos. La delegación de la República de Panamá se complace en presentar a ustedes la convocatoria de la 8ª Reunión Interamericana de Ministros de Educación en el ámbito del CIDI. Nuestras autoridades en la reunión de altas autoridades de la CIE, reunida aquí en la sede de la OEA el pasado 14 y 15 de octubre, Panamá formalmente presentó su ofrecimiento para albergar esta 8ª reunión. En ese sentido, hemos tenido a bien distribuir a través de la Secretaría este texto de este proyecto de resolución y estamos abiertos a cualquier comentario. Este evento se efectuará el 4 y 5 de febrero del 2015 y esperamos que las máximas autoridades en esta materia asistan para este evento. Es de interés de la Ministerial de Educación hacer una agenda hemisférica de educación, por lo que el diálogo es importante para que se pueda construir diferentes tipos de acercamiento entre estas autoridades y otras más que nuestros ministros van a hacer ese día de conocimiento de todos. Estamos trabajando con la Oficina de Educación para presentar con posterioridad el temario del evento, junto con la lista de observadores e invitados especiales para que los países hagan las observaciones pertinentes. Cualquier comentario será altamente agradecido. Muchas gracias.
Delegation of Panama, I wish to thank you for your presentation and offer to host this very important meeting of Ministers of Education. I would also like to take the opportunity to congratulate Panama for its recent election as chair of the Inter-American Committee on Education. I would like to offer the floor to delegations that may wish to refer to this and to the draft resolution that is being presented here by Panama. Me gustaría ofrecer la palabra al representante de Nicaragua, por favor.
Gracias, señor presidente. También para agradecer a Panamá por la presentación de esta resolución y, al igual que con la de trabajo, incluir la nota a pie de página en la mención de la sexta cumbre en el preambular tercero. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Nicaragua. Duly noted. I wish to offer the floor to the representative of Ecuador, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. En relación a esta resolución, también mi delegación desea agradecer la presentación de la misma a la delegación de Panamá y con respecto al texto, asimismo desea incluir una nota al pie en la referencia a Sexta Cumbre de las Américas, como me referí hace unos minutos en la anterior resolución que aprobamos. Le pasaré a la Secretaría el texto. Gracias.
Gracias, Ecuador. Los comentarios están notados. Me gustaría ofrecer la palabra al representante de Colombia, por favor.
Sí, muchas gracias, señor presidente. Mi delegación también se suma a los agradecimientos a la delegación de Panamá por presentar esta resolución y por ofrecer la sede de la reunión interamericana de ministros de educación. Quisiéramos solamente recoger un poco las discusiones que hubo en la Comisión Interamericana de Educación, donde recalcamos que los ministros deben discutir acciones concretas para alcanzar objetivos en temas tan importantes como la primera infancia, mejorar la calidad de la educación de nuestros maestros, los contenidos educativos también para garantizar una enseñanza efectiva a los niños y a los jóvenes, y también facilitar una transición de la escuela al trabajo, mejorar las tecnologías de la información y también trabajar en el tema de innovaciones pedagógicas para mejorar el aprendizaje. Para nuestro país es de gran importancia que nos estemos enfocando en las discusiones en este sentido. Sin lugar a dudas, la educación es un tema bastante crítico en el momento en las Américas y por lo tanto vemos con muy buenos ojos que los ministros de las Américas discutan el rol que a futuro debe desempeñar el hemisferio, compartan mejores prácticas, buscan extender los avances en cobertura y acceso, asegurar una educación de calidad para todos los niños y jóvenes, y el objetivo, en este objetivo específico, como ustedes pudieron escuchar a nuestro representante permanente, Colombia está trabajando con la Secretaría, adelantando consultas y con algunos países que también se han sumado a apoyarnos en estas consultas para explorar la idea de trabajar en una estructura en el sistema interamericano que acompaña a los estados en la formulación de mejores políticas públicas en educación y que oriente todos esos esfuerzos hacia los más altos estándares de calidad, buscando evidentemente no multiplicar esfuerzos y tratar de tener un marco financiero estable y sostenible. Le agradecemos a Panamá todo el apoyo que nos está prestando también en este contexto y esperamos continuar el diálogo pues, con su país y con todos los países miembros para sacar en el tema de educación unos resultados de largo plazo útiles para las Américas. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Colombia, para los comentarios. There being no further requests to the floor and there being no further comments, this resolution is hereby approved with the modifications raised here today. It's approved. Distinguished colleagues, the next agenda item in the order of business refers to the presentation of the results of the survey to identify the Member States' priorities within the Development Cooperation Fund, DCF. To present this report, I am pleased to offer the floor to the Secretariat. Secretariat, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everybody. As required under the new structure of the Development Cooperation Fund, the survey to define the area of action from the CIDI strategic plan was conducted, and I just have a summary of the survey. It's not very clear, I will just run through it very quickly. In order to define the area of action, the new structure requires us to review the national development plans and poverty reduction strategies of member states. We received 32 national development plans and poverty reduction strategies and conducted an analysis of those plans in accordance with the areas of action defined within the CIDI, the Strategic Plan for Partnership. Based on the analysis, the areas that emerged as the two prevailing priorities or that occurred the most frequently among the national development plans were the areas of sustainable development and social development, with sustainable development receiving 23.3% and 19.5% for social development. We then sent that information, and the survey has been sent to all countries, and I'm happy to make copies available. I believe we also sent it through the mission, so you would have a copy of that as well. We asked member states to rank their priorities. So member states were able to rank between social and sustainable development, 1 and 2. There were also 4 programs under each area, and member states were asked to select the requisite programs under the area of action. We also took the opportunity within the survey to have member states indicate to us what was their comparative advantage in a particular area, so that we would get an idea of lessons learned, good practices, etc., that exist within member states that we can share with others during the development of the program and the implementation of the program. We also asked in the survey that if there were any offers of cooperation that member states wanted to make, if there were areas within the 2 areas, if they were able to tell us whether there were cooperation programs that they would be willing to offer. The idea being that in the development of the programs, in the implementation of the programs, we'd also build in the aspect of cooperation, where member states could share with each other good practices, lessons learned, and others, so that we'd be pooling resources, reducing cost in the implementation of the programs. And pretty much the survey was limited to 10 questions. We tried to keep it short, and we conducted a number of video and telephone conferences with member states who requested them to clarify the survey, to review it with member states. So far, we've gotten very positive response. By Friday, we had 10 member states responding, and by Monday, we had 7. So we have a total of 17 member states who have responded to the survey so far. A few others have requested additional time because they are either looking at lessons learned that aspect of the survey has been received very favorably, and they're also looking at what cooperation programs they can offer under the two areas. So we expect to have the remainder of member states responding to us by the end of this week. Since we do not have all of the member states responding, we thought it may be important to perhaps extend the time for the approval by CIDI of the area of action and the 4 programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for this report. Distinguished colleagues, I'm of the view that we would need to grant more time to member states to reply to this survey so that responses would be representative of the views of the majority of member states. In that regard, I would propose we extend the deadline to respond to the survey by about 3 weeks, which would take us into November, and that the results be presented at the next CIDI meeting scheduled for November 18th. This will also give delegations several days to analyze the results before considering and approving them at CIDI. If we decide to extend this period by 3 weeks, I would propose we modify by three weeks the deadlines established in the programming, obligation, and execution schedule of the first programming cycle, contained in document AICD/JD/Doc 150/14 Rev 1, which was distributed to this Council as document CD/INF.88/14. At this point, I wish to open the floor to delegations that may wish to comment on this proposal. There being no request for the floor for accepting this proposal, it is so agreed and approved. I'll ask the Secretariat to modify the schedule and distribute it for the information of all delegations, and that it also be forwarded to the Chair of the Management Board of the Inter-American Agency for Cooperation and Development. Having said that, distinguished colleagues, we have moved to agenda item number 6. As we have completed the items on our agenda, I would ask delegations if there are any other matters they may wish to bring to the attention of this Council at this time. Having no request for the floor, I would wish to take the floor for just a moment to sort of explain. Tomorrow, the Embassy of Trinidad and Tobago, together with the Natural Gas Roundtable of the United States, would be hosting our 3rd meeting of our Global Gas Council, and I suggested, as Chair of CIDI, to work with the Secretary to sort of create a succinct relationship between water and energy at the level of CIDI and how that relates to the use of natural gas as one of our energy security issues in the hemisphere. Having said that, I took the floor as the country's permanent representative to the United States at the level of the Permanent Council, and an invitation was extended to the permanent representatives of the member states of the Organization of American States to actually join us for luncheon today at the University Club, being hosted by the Natural Gas Roundtable of the United States. And I also wish at this point to extend an invitation to all member states at the level of CIDI to join us tomorrow right here at the Organization of American States in this very hall for the 3rd annual meeting of the Global Gas Council. It takes place tomorrow. And for your own sort of knowledge, the Global Gas Council was really a council established by my delegation and some stakeholders here in our host country to discuss the concerns and policy issues as it relates to the production, delivery, and use of natural gas as a resource. And we also discuss at the last meeting that we had some of the impediments to efficient production of gas, and we were looking at opportunities for greater cooperation in terms of knowledge transfer, technology transfer, sharing of technical expertise, workforce development, commercial opportunities, education of the public and private sectors as it relates to the production of natural gas as an energy resource in the hemisphere, and of course looking at some of the issues on the legal and regulatory framework as it governs the use of natural gas as a resource. Having said that, and for your own interest, tomorrow for those delegations wishing to attend, we will have presentations by IHS Energy. The bilateral ambassador of Costa Rica will be presenting the narrative of Costa Rica and their use of energy resources. We'll also have commentary from the Regulatory Commission of the United States, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We have representatives from the Embassy of Mexico who will be explaining Mexico's energy reformation process that was just passed at the level of their Congress and Senate. We also have representatives from the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and we also extended the conversation beyond this hemisphere. So we'll have the ambassadors of Botswana, Gabon, and the AU arm of energy for the World Bank, as well as the ambassadors, the representatives of India, the European Union, to name a few, sharing the perspectives on energy security, particularly as it relates to gas as a resource. Having said that, Member States, you are more than welcome to join us, and I think it's simply an extension and a broader sense of the conversation we are having here today between the nexus of water and energy security in the hemisphere. Having said that, and there being no further requests for the floor, I wish to adjourn this meeting at this time. This meeting is hereby adjourned. I would also like to invite those participating in the meeting of the Committee on Migration Issues to remain in their places. This meeting is going to begin in 5.2 minutes here in the Hall of the Americas. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day.